Today we're going to be talking about Frankenstein, how he came to be, and what brought him into movie monster fame. While doing so, I'll be recreating the famous makeup on myself. Before I get started, I'm going to get into this lovely bald cap and do a little bit of prep, so I'll be right back. Well, now that I'm bald, we can go ahead. So, Frankenstein first appeared in the 1818 novel Frankenstein, The Modern Prometheus by Mary Shelley. And the way I remember this story, or how the story was created, and the way it actually happened are totally different. I always remembered it as a contest between friends on who could write the best horror story. And that's how we got our three main movie monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, and Wolfman. Now, what really happened was, after reading ghost stories due to being stuck inside because of bad weather, Lord Byron, one of Mary's friends, proposed that they have a competition to see who could write the best ghost story. The contenders, Byron, Mary, Percy, and this physician, John Polidori, or Polidori, I should say. Don't know how to pronounce his name. Anyways, in the end, Mary won. No surprise there. And neither Byron nor Percy finished a ghost story, although Polidori wrote The Vampire, which later influenced Bram Stoker while writing Dracula. But that's a story for another video. So, if you've lived this long without hearing the story of Frankenstein, or at least some sort of adaptation, I'd be surprised. But just in case, here's the short version. So, a gentleman by the name of Victor Frankenstein is obsessed with the idea of creating life. His obsession leads him to go to mortuaries and cemeteries in order to steal body parts so that he can put together this creature and bring it to life. Now, after some time, he succeeds and then realizes the monster he created and proceeds to abandon it, thinking, it's just gonna die of exposure. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. So the monster goes on a killing rampage, starts out with Victor's little brother. Victor then finds the monster, shocked that it's still alive. The monster asks Victor to create him a companion, to which Victor agrees, starts creating the monster's companion, and then he's like, you know what? This isn't a great idea. So what does he do? Destroys it, because he's not going to make the same mistake twice. So Victor's monster is infuriated by this and seeks vengeance by killing Victor's wife right after the two got married. Victor then goes to hunt the monster down, but then dies of exposure. Kind of ironic there. Is that ironic? That he thought the monster died, but then he ends up dying of exposure? I don't know. You tell me. Anyways, he dies of exposure, and the monster just kind of disappears. Pretty sure it's alluded that he dies of exposure too, but he's just not there. This cotton is tickling my nose. As a side note, I'm aware that Frankenstein's monster isn't named Frankenstein, but over the decades, everyone thinks of the monster, and it is now morphed into the monster's name being Frankenstein. In a way, it's like similar to how we refer to artists' work by the artist's last name. For example, like, that's a Picasso, or that's a Da Vinci. Well, that's a Frankenstein. You know what I mean? Now back to our regularly scheduled program. The most famous portrayal of Frankenstein that later became the commonly accepted visual representation of the character was done by none other than Boris Karloff in the 1931 film Frankenstein, the Man Who Made the Monster. This is where we get the visual elements of the squared head, the green skin, the neck bolts, the heavy, thick boots, and the list goes on. We see the effects of this version of Frankenstein in future films such as The Bride of Frankenstein, Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, Van Helsing, and Hotel Transylvania, just to name a few. Now, how was this movie monster brought to life? Well, let's get into the makeup. Poor Boris Karloff had to sit in the chair for some say 4 hours, others say 8, and after attempting this makeup once already, I'm pretty sure it was closer to the 8-hour mark. So the makeup design was created by makeup artist Jack Pierce, and the design itself is copywritten until the year 2026, which I thought was super interesting. Pierce achieved this by building up Karloff's head using cotton, gum, and collodion, which is liquid plastic. If you didn't know, I had to look it up. I had no idea. He then applied green grease paint to make Karloff's skin appear pale on the black and white film. The application process took forever, and it said the removal process took about 2 hours. Because of this, Karloff would sometimes go home with the makeup still on. He would then sleep with his head between 2 books to try and not move as much during the night. And then after that, he would arrive on set the following day, and Pierce would fix anything that got messed up during the night, which was a lot shorter than reapplying the whole face. In the end, the makeup took a toll on Karloff, and he actually left with scars where the bolts had to constantly be reapplied. If you haven't noticed, the method I'm using today is very similar to Pierce's version, with the exception of liquid latex instead of collodion. Thankfully, makeup has evolved, and if you're curious on how the pros would recreate this today, here's how they do it. So, instead of redoing the face every day from scratch, the artist would actually take a mold of the actor's head and then make a cast. Using the cast, they would take clay and sculpt out what they want the end result to look like, and they'd make another mold, and then using foam latex, they'd create the final prosthetic piece, which is actually really cool. Foam latex is awesome because it's lightweight, it's breathable, it's easier to move around in, and it's just all out better than just regular liquid latex. If you've ever worked with liquid latex before, you know. For the face paint or makeup portion of it, artists today would use an alcohol activated palette because it's 1, fast drying, and 2, it's waterproof. Today I'm using something similar, except it's a water-based palette because, let's be honest, I'm not really planning on going anywhere after this. So one of the most difficult parts about this whole thing is definitely the color matching portion of it, because they don't just sell a color called Frankenstein green. No, you have to use your trial and error and kind of mix some yellows with some greens, because he's not exactly a green, it's kind of like a pale yellowish green. So, getting back to the good part, the 1931 film. While researching, I found a ton of interesting facts about the movie. And I am now going to share them with you because that's my favorite part. My favorite part is definitely the interesting facts. So, Boris Karloff was 44 years old when the movie premiered, which continuously reminds me that life doesn't end at 25. Secondly, the boots that he wore were actually asphalt boots that weighed 13 pounds each, and his costume as a whole weighed 45 pounds. Third, many actors turned down the role before Karloff actually took it, one of them being yours truly, Bela Lugosi, who said he was a star in his country and he didn't come to America to become another scarecrow, which I think is very funny. And then the other actor was John Carradine. I don't know. He turned down the role because he thought he was too highly trained of an actor to be reduced to playing monsters. Which I can't help but laugh because I have no clue who this guy is, and I know who Boris Karloff is, so obviously he wasn't super memorable in any of the other roles he played, unless I'm just like really bad at movie knowledge. And, you know, Boris Karloff was a lot more memorable. So, joke's on you. So another few facts to note, just go to show how nice of a guy Karloff was. For example, there was a concern that the 7-year-old Marilyn Harris would be frightened by the sight of Karloff in costume. So when the cast was gathering to travel to the filming location, Marilyn actually ran from her car straight to Karloff, who was in full makeup, took his hand and asked, "May I drive with you?" Delighted, he responded, "Would you, darling?" And then she rode to the location with the monster, which I just think is so cute, so adorable. Okay, I think I'm pretty much good. I'm just gonna put this wig on. So secondly, while preparing to film the scene where the monster attacks Elizabeth, Mae Clarke admitted to Karloff that she was worried that she'd be frightened when she saw him in full makeup. Karloff told her that throughout the scene, he would wiggle his pinky finger out of sight of the camera so that despite the horrific makeup, she would see her friend Boris waving at her, letting her know that she was safe. Those two facts melted my heart. Now, before I end this, I'm gonna hurry and get into costume. Be right back. What can I say? I'm a sucker for happy endings. As far as sweet facts go, can't escape the fact that, you know, Frankenstein killed multiple people, but hey, it happens. Anyways, this is the final look. Hope you learned something new and that you enjoyed watching. And as always, let me know what you want to see next. Until next time. So, this Frankenstein's monster is infuriated. Infuriated. That was tough. So Victor's monster is infuriated. Can I just quit now?